Brian, this is going to be the toughest test yet for you and I. I think we had a little bit of a Aaron Rodgers test run in the Pittsburgh Steelers video, but as far as you and I setting out to do this entire series, all 32 teams in the NFL, unbiased, non-attacking, non-slanted, just purely how we think these teams did from the end of the 2024 season until now. But today it's the New Orleans Saints, and I'm going to have to watch my mouth in this one. So we might as well just go ahead and skip ahead and just say, Brian, how were the Saints in 2024?
Uh, in 2024, they were absolutely terrible. 5-12,
I
just
love to see. I'm sorry.
well, and it wasn't that they were a bad football team, just injuries mounted up against the Saints. And you hate it for the team, you hate it for the players, you hate it for the fans, but they just could not escape it. I know we're Atlanta guys, and it's tough to be nice, but at the same time, I don't want to see, as a fan of football, I don't want to see that go through on any team. But it's just like they couldn't escape it. I mean, from wide receivers to quarterbacks to defensive players. I mean, it was just like I said. I think at one time their wide receiver one was actually their wide receiver four guy, and that's tough to overcome in any league, especially the NFL. Um, but yeah, they needed some help. They still need some help, and I don't know that they got it in this offseason, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, they struggled, like you said, on both sides of the ball. A lot of that could have been just missing contributors. 21st ranked offense, only managing 320 yards per game, whereas their defense was 30th, giving up 380 yards per game. You're not going to see too many teams that are showing success when they're giving up more than what they're producing. And that was purely the case for the Saints. We saw them with the top 10 draft pick as a result. But we'll get into kind of some of those departures and who they're not going to be seeing in New Orleans this upcoming season. Big name there is going to be Derek Carr, former starting quarterback. He has retired, as has safety Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, as has offensive tackle Ryan Ramchick. It is kind of a mass exodus of long-term veteran starters. These are all guys that we're going to have replacements, and we'll get into it over the course of this video, but maybe some of these guys were replaced and maybe some of these guys weren't. Only other really notable name that I think we've talked about already is Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He is the aforementioned wide receiver four who was playing wide receiver one at the end of last season when Rashid Shaheed is no longer there. And obviously Chris Olave missed a lot of games due to his head injuries and everything like that. MVS is now a Seattle Seahawk in that revamped wide receiver room. So some different names coming in to the New Orleans Saints. One of those is going to be head coach Kellen Moore, formerly the offensive coordinator of your Super Bowl champion winning Philadelphia Eagles. But he's somebody that is known to have really good offensive schemes. He knows how to play to the strengths of his players, especially when it comes to the quarterback position. That's going to be something that is in flux this year. I think you and I will both agree to that. He probably took this job thinking that Derek Carr was his quarterback, and he has since had to figure out a different plan. But a couple of players that they brought in, one being safety Justin Reed, he signs a big 3-year, $31.5 million contract. And then a wide receiver coming in, Brandon Cooks, he gets a 2-year deal. Maybe not at the peak of his career either, but when you're in a situation like New Orleans is, where it's not a very favorable destination, it's not a place that they've had a lot of money to spend in recent years, you get what you get, and just hope that Kellen Moore, maybe with that Dallas connection, I think they're familiar from their mutual time as Cowboys with Kellen Moore and Brandon Cooks. Maybe that's some magic that they can recapture there. Obviously, Chris Olave could be viewed as a ticking time bomb. I still like Rashid Shaheed. I hope he has a bounce back campaign because what he was doing at the beginning of last year was phenomenal. But just as far as these couple of signings goes, it's obvious that they didn't have a lot of money to spend, but they knew holes that they had to plug. They did spend a little bit more money kind of in bringing some of their own guys back. Biggest surprise to me was tight end Juwan Johnson. He gets 3 years, over $10 million per year. I thought that was a lot of money for him and maybe what he's shown this far in his career. Cam Jordan, edge rusher, he revised his contract. He is returning for a 15th season. here in New Orleans. I think that's something that they needed. And then Chase Young, former, all world, all pro edge rusher of the Commanders, he is now going to be coming back 3 years, $51 million.
Yeah, I don't know that they've done enough for, yeah, they brought back some key players. Obviously Kamara, the running back, is going to be a stud. He has been. I just don't know that they've got enough. And we're going to get into it with their draft picks with the quarterback position with Derek Carr leaving. It's going to be tough to overcome that. And I just don't know that they have his replacement as of yet.
Yeah, that's kind of the big thing. And we'll go ahead and get into this draft. I mentioned they had a top 10 draft pick sitting at ninth overall. I think a lot of people, once the Derek Carr news came out, immediately turned towards, okay, are they the Shador Sanders landing spot? Are they going to take Jackson Dart? What type of quarterback will Kellen Moore gravitate to lead this franchise now that Derek Carr is no longer going to be in the building? And the answer was neither of them. So first round, they end up taking a very talented offensive tackle by the name of Kelvin Banks. He was the longtime starter at left tackle for Texas. He started all of his games at left tackle for Texas, did a very good job. So definitely a worthy selection, as far as being a top 10 caliber player goes, just maybe not what a lot of people expected to see after the Carr retirement. Didn't have to wait too much longer, though. Second round pick, they do end up taking a quarterback, though, again, maybe not one that people would have thought of. When you've got guys like Jalen Milroe on the board, you've got guys like Shador Sanders and Dylan Gabriel and all these other players that are still there at quarterback. The Saints, a little bit of a head scratcher. They end up taking Tyler Shuck, a quarterback out of Louisville, who I think was in college for 7 years, but only played one full season because of a lot of missed games due to injury. Obviously, you had COVID and different transfer stuff and things of that nature. But before we kind of go into those last couple picks that I think are worth mentioning, just real quick, what did you think about the Tyler Shuck selection at quarterback? And do you think he has what it takes to beat out Spencer Rattler and Jake Hayner and the other quarterbacks there in that room?
I don't know because I think they're all kind of equal. I don't, it's a toss up as who they bring out under center this year. It's probably going to be Shuck. He's going to catch a lot of hate because I just don't think he's ready for the NFL, even though, he did do an extensive length in college. I don't see him as a top NFL type quarterback. I do see him, fitting in as a second or, somebody that you can bring in that situation. But I mean, we already saw what Rattler could do last year, not much. Um, I just I don't know. I just don't think it's almost like they're playing for last place so that they can get an Arch Manning or, a much better quarterback. And we talked about it this year, past Cam Ward, there wasn't much talent, but next year there's a ton of talent coming out. So, is that what they're playing for? Are they playing the long game? I don't know. I mean, Kellen Moore coming in, yeah, he's just now coming in, so I don't know. Nothing that he does or don't do this year is going to cost him his job for sure. But I mean, I don't know. I just kind of, to me, it would leave a bad taste in my mouth if I was a player. Is you've already given up before the season even got started.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that a little bit in the Cleveland video with the Miles Garrett situation. He wanted to play for a winner. He said it wasn't all about the money, that he was not agreeing to re sign with Cleveland until he heard their plan for contention because he wants to compete. He wants to be part of a contending team. And then what we got was Dylan Gabriel and Shador Sanders and Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett. It's just a very uninspiring group of signal callers that makes us think, was this the plan? And so
Hmm.
you look at Derek Carr and him announcing his retirement. Is Tyler Shuck really the plan? What does New Orleans see in him that maybe some of us or some of their own fans don't see? I'm sure there's a lot of optimism around him, but when it comes time to be realistic, how far can Tyler Shuck take the Saints in 2025? And I think you and I are both in agreement that the answer is not very.
Yeah.
But there was a couple of other picks outside of their top two picks that I thought were pretty interesting. So going to the fourth round, Danny Stutzman, a linebacker from Oklahoma. I love that pick. He is very much, when you get into multiple look defenses, especially 3-4. You've got a couple of inside linebackers. He's somebody that I think could fill one of those spots as an inside linebacker. He's rangier than what you would think he would be, but a very short tackler. I think he's somebody that can be a solid, reliable piece for that defense that needed a lot of help. And then going to the 6th round, Devin Neal, running back from Kansas. I liked Kendre Miller a lot coming out of TCU, but he has not proven to be reliable enough, not durable enough. He has just not earned the trust of the previous coaching regime. Maybe Kellen Moore coming in can create a fresh start for that depth chart behind Alvin Kamara. But if Kendre Miller fails to impress over the course of training camp, Devin Neal is going to be the day one RB2 on this roster come time for the season to start. And if Alvin Kamara were to miss any time, Devin Neal can do it all. He's actually a very talented pass catcher. He's a very hard-nosed runner, not a very shifty, not a very small back. He's muscular. He runs hard, but he just does it all. He's got good vision, good handling. I really like what the Saints did, especially in some of their later picks versus their top 2 picks, which I almost feel like would have been better served swapped. So I guess that might be my question to you is, would you feel differently being in our division as a rival? Would you feel differently about the Saints and competing with Atlanta and Carolina and Tampa Bay this year if they had taken Jackson Dart at pick 9 and then chosen a different offensive tackle in the 2nd round? Would you view them as being more formidable than what we're thinking of them now?
No, honestly, I don't mind the offensive tackle in the 1st round. You know, if you had a quarterback, if you'd have gone out and spent a little money on the offseason and picked up a veteran quarterback or some kind of quarterback, it, that pick makes a ton of sense. But for the quarterback room that you have, no, it doesn't make sense. But I also wasn't in the player interview. I don't know that any quarterback made sense to them. You know, are they playing the long game with Shuck and he's going to be their backup eventually? Let me just get through this year and I can pick up a really good quarterback next year. You know, or I I don't know. I don't know swapping them would made any sense this year because they weren't going to get Cam Ward. They weren't high enough. I don't know that yeah, they could have traded their life away, but trading your life away for Cam Ward. I don't, that wouldn't make any sense either. So I don't mind the offensive tackle pick. The Shucks pick doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But again, I wasn't in all the stuff that these kids go through during draft day and before draft day when they're going through their interviews and all that kind of stuff. So I I don't know. Like I said, I'm like you. I do like their 4th round, their 6th round. Those were good pickups. So I don't know. I think they're going to be off this year, and I'm kind of spoiling our predictions that we'll do here in a minute. But it just is what it is.
Yeah, I think people can read the room and know that we're not predicting a 10-win season for the Saints or anywhere close to it. I'd be surprised if you could find anybody who is. But before we did get into the record predictions, I did want to briefly talk about strengths and concerns because that has been kind of the norm in these videos. Biggest strength right now is I think their defense is capable of keeping game scores low. We talked about Alvin Kamara and how good he is. I think he is the linchpin of not only this offense, not just the run game, especially, but I think he is this team. He is going to be the linchpin. I think New Orleans is only going to be as good as Alvin Kamara's performances on any given week. And we've seen him, the Christmas Day game where he had, what was it, 4 or 5 touchdowns in a single game. He can take over. He can outscore entire teams by himself. And so maybe that's where the thought process of Kellen Moore kicks in, where he's like, hey, look, we lost Ryan Ramchick. We know that our run game has to be good. We know that we've got to protect our pedestrian quarterback. So we might as well make sure that our offensive line is set and taken care of. So that way we can move forward with another quarterback. Basically saying, I don't know that it would have done any good to bring in Jackson Dart if you weren't going to be able to protect him. So you might as well shore up the offensive line first, let them gel and progress, and then put a young quarterback behind him when he's in a little bit better of a position to succeed. That being said, the quarterback situation is one of the league's worst, and that's definitely going to plague this team in this year and years moving forward until they do add a true signal caller. And of course, this is the egg on the face type moment for us where this could get pulled in years down the line when Tyler Shuck becomes the next Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes and just lights the entire league on fire. We're going to look pretty stupid for this. But as it stands right now, we just have to call him as we see him. And at this stage of the game, I don't have high expectations for Tyler Shuck or this offense. Defense can only do so much. They can lose close games just as easily as they can win close games when their offense isn't taking advantage of the situations the defense puts them in. That being said, 5-12 last year, fourth in the division. I've got them finishing fourth in the division again, but slipping to 3-14. And I think they are going to be battling for the league's worst record and possibly the first overall pick next year, where they will have a shot to add a true quarterback talent that could be transformative for this team.
Yep. I think you've nailed it 100%. I'm not even going to really add on to it. 3 wins, that's probably about it.
Yep. So that being said, going into fantasy, you probably can give me a little bit of a different answer. I've got one name and one name only. It's Alvin Kamara. I don't know if you want to roll the dice on another Saint this year, run it back from some of your picks last year. But Alvin Kamara, he is going to be the do-it-all. He's going to be the guy who they try to get the ball into his hands as many different ways, as many times as possible. Obviously, you want him to stay healthy. You don't want him to get run too far down to the ground, but I think he's still got a few productive years left. The way that he plays is going to be something that they can take advantage of because he is equally as effective, if not more so dangerous, as a pass catcher out of the backfield than he is as a rusher of the ball. But he also can run the ball between the tackles and be very effective that way as well. So Alvin Kamara in 2025 is the Saints offense. I think he's a great pick for fantasy football because we know in fantasy you are chasing opportunity, not necessarily efficiency, and he should have just as many opportunities as any other running back in the league this year. They're going to really rely on him.
Yep. The only thing that I would say different would be Shaheed if you're playing kick returns. If you get points per yard for your kick returns, that might be worth looking up. But yeah, that's it. That's your only player, one running back.
And I think the big name that we're not mentioning here is Chris Olave. Obviously, he's a very talented receiver.
Yes.
He was pretty healthy first couple of years in the season. It was just last year. But we've seen these head injuries. We've seen the way that they affect somebody like Tua Tagovailoa, where if you are getting one concussion, getting two concussions, how they start to stack up, you become more prone to concussions. And now you're talking about a new young quarterback that's coming in. Is Tyler Shuck going to be a ball placement wizard? Is he the next Aaron Rodgers? We don't know yet. But if he's anything less than that, it's only going to take any one errant pass can be a hospital ball for Chris Olave, not just a trendy term, but a true ball that puts him back in the hospital because he's been there before. He could be one concussion away from never playing football again. Yes, he's a talented receiver. I might look stupid by not drafting him on more of my fantasy teams this year because he could have a bounce back campaign. He's just not the type of player that I'm willing to take a risk on, if for no other reason than I don't want to find more Saints that I have to cheer for to score points on any given Sunday.
Yep, I'm right there with you. All right, guys, that's going to conclude our Saints video. I'm sorry we didn't have better news for you, but stay tuned for tomorrow's video, and you're going to hear more of the same, I believe, from the Carolina Panthers. But we hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give us a like. Hopefully you've already subscribed. If you're not, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us, and we will see you guys in the next one.